The story begins with a woman named Maria enduring intense labor pains. After a difficult delivery, she gives birth to a healthy baby boy. Her agony turns to pure joy. A few weeks later, Maria and her husband Jesus are out shopping for furniture with their newborn. In a showroom, a salesman shows them a flashy coffee table. Its glass top is supported by two gold-plated female statues. He insists it's Swedish, unbreakable, and the best table in the store. Jesus is intrigued, but Maria doesn't like it. This sparks an argument. Frustrated, Jesus vents that Maria makes every decision, even naming their baby without consulting him. He says he never agreed to the name Cayetano. Ironically, the salesman reveals that's also his name, but Maria, unimpressed, calls him a sleazy businessman. Still, the salesman pushes on, claiming that unlike a vase, furniture, or even a marriage, this glass will never break. Suddenly, the baby starts crying. Maria throws one last insult at the salesman before storming out. Despite the salesman admitting he wouldn't buy it himself, Jesus buys the table, just to spite his wife. Back at their apartment, Jesus struggles to carry the table upstairs. They're greeted by their neighbor and her daughter, Ruth. The neighbor happily coos over the baby, while Ruth seems annoyed. Her mother says it's about her boyfriend. But Ruth snaps that he's not a boyfriend, just someone who's in love with her. Once they're alone, Ruth approaches Jesus and shockingly reveals he is the boy she was talking about. She reminds Jesus that she tried to kiss him in the elevator a few days earlier, and he pulled away. She says she asked for love poems for a school project, and now believes he feels something for her. Ruth even threatens to tell her parents unless Jesus runs away with her. But Jesus is horrified. He reminds her she's only 13, and he's a married man with a baby. When she insists, he slams the door in her face. Later, Jesus is setting up the coffee table while Maria feeds the baby. He realizes a screw is missing. Furious, he calls the salesman, who apologizes and agrees to send the missing part. The couple argues again. Maria still thinks the table is ugly and too expensive. After some heated words, she leaves to buy groceries. Her brother and his girlfriend are visiting soon, and she tells Jesus to look after the baby. He asks her to bring wine. She refuses, saying if she can't drink, neither should he. As soon as Maria leaves, the baby starts crying. Jesus plays music, walks him around, and even shows him the new table. Then, suddenly, everything changes. Jesus slips and falls. In a horrifying moment, shards of shattered glass pierce the baby's head. Jesus is left trembling, soaked in blood. Elsewhere, Maria is in a grocery store, excitedly telling a friend about her new baby, the result of 2 years of treatment. Back at home, Jesus is in shock. His hands tremble as he pulls glass from his skin. Maria calls. It's just her friend wanting to say congratulations. Jesus, panicked, hangs up without speaking. Maria assumes his phone battery died. Jesus realizes he needs to act fast. He notices the baby has wet himself and, with shaking hands, changes the diaper. Maria calls again, asking what kind of wine he wants. Still unable to respond clearly, he hangs up again. Maria leaves him a frustrated voicemail. Meanwhile, Jesus puts the baby's lifeless body in the crib, as if he were only sleeping. Trying to clean the blood, Jesus can't find the supplies. He goes to Ruth's apartment. She notices he's covered in red and asks if he's painting. Jesus says yes, then asks for cleaning materials. Ruth wants to know if he told Maria about their relationship. Jesus says he will, later today. Her mother arrives and agrees to help. Back at the apartment, the salesman arrives with the missing screw. He confesses the table was actually made in China, not Sweden. He also wants to hang out, maybe grab dinner. Jesus, growing irritated, slams the door on him. Then, he begins scrubbing the floor. Under an armchair, he sees the baby's severed head, but can't bring himself to touch it. Maria texts, she'll be home in 30 minutes. Panicked, Jesus races to shower, washing off the blood. He bandages his hand, trying to pull himself together. Soon, the doorbell rings. It's Maria. He doesn't want to face her, so he runs to the balcony, considering jumping, but he can't. Finally, he opens the door. Maria, concerned, asks why he took so long. Jesus claims he was calming the baby, who's now sleeping peacefully. He tells her the table broke. Maria laughs. So much for being unbreakable. Inside the apartment, Jesus is overwhelmed with fear and guilt, visibly sweating as he struggles with a terrifying secret. When Maria suggests checking on Cayetano and grabbing the baby monitor, Jesus panics and quickly intercepts her. He urges her to go back to preparing the meal, insisting that he'll watch the baby himself. In a moment filled with regret, Jesus tells Maria how much he loves her and asks for forgiveness for any pain he might have caused. His words touch Maria deeply. She attributes their recent arguments to the challenges of becoming new parents and reassures him that together they can get through anything. Later, as they're in the kitchen, Maria hears something odd through the baby monitor. what sounds like dripping. Before she can check, Jesus jumps in, claiming he knows what it is and will take care of it. He rushes to the nursery, only to find blood slowly dripping from the crib. Shaken, Jesus returns and pours himself a glass of wine, attempting to steady his nerves. Suddenly, he hears his baby crying through the monitor, but realizes it's just a hallucination. At that moment, his older brother Carlos arrives with his young girlfriend Christina. Maria greets them warmly, but Carlos immediately notices how tense Jesus is. When he asks what's wrong, Maria casually mentions an incident with the pricey coffee table that caused Jesus to injure his hand. Christina then innocently points out that there's still blood under the armchair. Alarmed, Jesus rushes to cover the evidence and sits down, hiding what lies beneath, the severed head of his son. When Carlos expresses a desire to meet his nephew, Jesus quickly makes excuses, saying the baby finally fell asleep. Christina, however, insists she just wants to see him sleep, and even brings a handmade outfit from her grandmother. Maria is delighted and asks Jesus to dress Cayetano in it to see how adorable he looks. Instead of complying, Jesus snaps at her, causing noticeable tension. Carlos urges him to be respectful, while Maria tries to lighten the mood by offering to show Christina the nursery. As the women leave, Carlos confronts Jesus about his behavior, thinking it's related to a girl named Ruth again. He suggests filing a report, but Jesus dismisses the idea, noting that Ruth is only 13 and will likely move on soon. In that moment, Jesus contemplates confessing the truth to his brother, but fear wins and he backs out. Eventually, they all gather in the nursery, a room Cayetano will never occupy. Later at dinner, everyone chats happily, except for Jesus, who drinks nervously and begins hallucinating again, seeing blood where there is none. As the conversation shifts to parenthood, Maria lovingly states that caring for Cayetano is her greatest joy, more important even than her love for her husband. Suddenly, Jesus hears the voice of the salesman echoing in his head, describing how the coffee table glass is unbreakable. Then, Carlos announces that Christina is pregnant and expresses excitement that their child will grow up alongside Cayetano. Maria smiles, but Jesus offers no reaction, leaving Carlos feeling hurt. When Carlos asks if he's still obsessing over the coffee table, Jesus snaps. He lashes out, accusing his brother of ruining an 18-year-old's life by getting her pregnant. He then declares that buying the table was the worst decision he ever made before storming off to the bathroom. There, Jesus records a farewell message to Maria. Tearfully, he admits that he accidentally killed their child and doesn't have the strength to tell her in person. He confesses he no longer wishes to live and pleads for forgiveness. Just then, Carlos bursts in and demands to know who the message is for. We soon learn that Jesus has finally confessed everything to him. In the nursery, Carlos is stunned when he sees the headless infant. When he asks about the head, Jesus says it's under the armchair. He couldn't bring himself to move it. He tells Carlos he plans to jump off the balcony, but Carlos pleads with him to stop, saying they need time to figure things out. At that moment, Maria knocks and asks about the baby. Thinking quickly, Carlos tells her the baby is sleeping and asks for a few more minutes. She agrees but says she'll need to feed him in 10 minutes. After she leaves, Carlos tries to calm Jesus, saying accidents can happen and they need to break the news gently. But Jesus remains fixated on ending his life. Carlos insists he'll handle everything and warns that Maria must not see the child. Doing so could destroy her emotionally. Then, an unexpected knock interrupts them. Ruth has arrived with her dog, demanding to speak with Jesus. Maria tells her now's not the time, but the persistent girl claims it's urgent. In a shocking move, Ruth accuses Jesus of kissing her in the elevator, leaving Maria stunned. Jesus and Carlos return to the living room just as Maria confronts him about the accusation. Jesus is speechless, struggling to form a response. Suddenly, Ruth's dog approaches the armchair and begins barking. The commotion draws attention, and Ruth notices the baby's severed head. Carlos rushes to hide it, but Maria sees the dog stained with blood and demands an explanation. Christina also glimpses the horror and begins to vomit uncontrollably. Realizing that something is terribly wrong, Maria insists on knowing what Carlos is hiding. He begs her to take Christina and leave, but Maria refuses and keeps pressing. Eventually, Carlos gives in and hands her the baby's head. The moment Maria realizes the truth, she releases a soul-crushing scream. Her entire world shatters in an instant. As chaos erupts around her, Maria walks to the balcony, still holding her baby's head. In an act of unbearable grief, she jumps, ending her own life. Later, police arrive at the apartment. It's revealed that Jesus also jumped, following his wife into death. Ruth suffers an anxiety attack, while Christina remains in shock, being cared for by medics. Carlos, frozen in despair, can only utter one phrase, the coffee tape. In the final scene, we see Jesus and Maria reunited in the afterlife, cradling their child. Nearby stands the infamous coffee table, a haunting symbol of the tragedy that tore their lives apart. End the movie. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other recaps and subscribe for more content. And leave comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.